It is time for you to look inward and ask yourself the big question. Who are you and what do you want? Uncle Iroh, Season 2, Episode 17 of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Before I say anything more, I would like to say that there's going to be massive spoilers for Avatar: The Last Airbender and the sequel comics, The Promise and The Search. I'll give a moment for you to leave this video, and then if you don't want to be spoiled, but if you don't mind being spoiled, let's continue on, and I'll explain what this video is about. Joseph Campbell, in his book The Hero's Journey, describes the concept of a monomyth, which is a template for the journey our heroes go on through in various stories, which will. So yeah, the hero's journey. These heroes go on these journeys. They go through in these templates. These heroes go through these various stages of the hero's journey, from the ordinary world to the special world, and finally back to the ordinary world for the big finale. These various stages comprise of what they call the monomyth, or the hero's journey. I'm going to make an argument for Zuko, despite playing an antagonistic role for much of Avatar: The Last Airbender, is an example of the hero's journey, as he can fit pretty much all of these, except for one that we'll have a very good reason for, which we'll go into later. So before we go any further, I would like to explain what the Avatar: The Last Airbender is, for those who are not aware. Avatar: The Last Airbender is an animated series that aired on Nickelodeon from February 2005 to July of 2008. It's created by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Conzeteco and by Nickelodeon Animation Studios. It's a story about... It's set in a world where the people can bend the four elements, who are called benders, and about the Avatar, who is the only person who can manipulate all four elements. Within the show, there has been a war going on for the past 100 years by the Fire Nation, which, to no one's surprise, comprises of firebenders. For the past 100 years, the Avatar has been missing. But at Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2, Katara, a member of the Southern Water Tribe, finds Aang trapped in an iceberg. He is an air nomad, the air nomads who were wiped out by the Fire Nation 100 years ago, and he is the last Airbender, and also the Avatar who was prophesied to save the world and end this bloody conflict. So now we're just going to go into a bit of an introduction. So in the typical hero's journey, we start with the ordinary world until we go into the special world. But because Zuko plays an antagonistic role, the first four parts of the hero's journey, while they occur either off-screen or they are mentioned in the comics. So I will go into the parts 1 through 4, but note that this is I'm not exactly telling this in chronological order of what we see in the show. Much of what we see here is either in flashbacks, or what I'll be saying about Zuko's mother will be delved into in the comics. So number 1, the ordinary world. Zuko was the crown prince of the Fire Nation and heir to the throne, who was considered an inferior firebender to his sister, who was considered a prodigy. At some point in his childhood, his mother suddenly vanished, without any, and he had no idea why. This information on what happened to her is later explained in the comic The Search, where Zuko tracks down his mother and finds out the truth of what happened. Number 2, call to adventure. Well, it was kind of forced here. So when Zuko was 13, he was invited to a war meeting where he spoke out against a general wanting to use baiting tactics with basically conscripts, which would result in the death of those people. As a result of this disrespect, he was forced to fight in what they call an Agni Kai, which is a fire duel. But instead of facing the general like he thought he would, he ended up facing his father. He refused to fight his father and was burned as a result, which is how he receives that scar on his face, and he was exiled. He was told that he would only be allowed to return to the Fire Nation if he found the Avatar, who has been missing for 100 years. At this point, his honor, which it's a bit of a running joke that Zuko in his honor is lost. Zuko is now on his journey to find the Avatar to restore his honor. Though this will later come into question later on as Zuko questions this. So I mentioned that there's only one that he doesn't really fit, and that is number 3, refusal of the call. Why I say it doesn't really fit? Well, because of the forced nature of his call to adventure, he couldn't exactly refuse the call. So one could argue that he's sort of, in his character arc later, in his inner turmoil between joining the Avatar and not, one could make an argument for that, but I don't think it really fits here because I would consider that more part of his ordeal. But we'll go into that later. I don't really think that he fits number 3 just due to the forced nature of the call. Now, the hero will always have a mentor figure, and in the case of Zuko, it is Uncle Iroh, his father's older brother, who, due to some political shenanigans that happened off screen, he lost his place as crown prince, and Uncle Iroh becomes a father figure and joins Zuko on his journey, providing words of wisdom and teaching Zuko more about firebending and helping him improve. Now, number 5 is finally where we get to the start of the show, crossing the threshold. At this point, Zuko has been on his journey for a few years at this point, and he finds that the Avatar is alive. He was found by, as I mentioned, a waterbender named Katara at the Southern Water Tribe, which is located at the South Pole, and he begins his hunt to find the Avatar. Because now the end is in sight. If he can just get the Avatar, he will have his honor restored and he can return home. Number 6 comprises of 2 slides because I feel like so much happens that is notable that I want to take 2 slides to describe them. Throughout Season 1, we are shown various trials of Aang and his group as they try to make their way to the Northern Water Tribe so Aang can find a waterbending teacher. Zuko tries and fails many times to capture Aang, but Zuko's own struggles culminate in the season finale of Season 1, The Siege of the North, where Admiral Zhao basically takes Zuko's crew to join him on an invasion of the North Pole. Zuko barely survives the mess that follows, and the only reason he survives is because Aang decided to spare his life. As a result of this, Zuko and Iroh become fugitives and end up hiding in the Earth Kingdom. In part 2, part 2 takes place more in the beginning of Season 2, where Zuko and Iroh are now refugees. They no longer have their ship. They are hungry, and Zuko at one point goes off alone where he befriends an Earth Kingdom family, various situations. He goes through various trials there, sometimes with Iroh, sometimes alone. But now these episodes force him to see just how much the Fire Nation is hated among the Earth Kingdom, because again, this war has been going on for 100 years at this point. He also learns to take pride in his lineage and to never give up without a fight. To quote what's inscribed on his dagger. So number 6 sort of lasts until they reach Ba Sing Se. Ba Sing Se is the capital of the Earth Kingdom, and this is where we approach the innermost cave, which is kind of in a literal sense, as y'all will see in the next slide. Zuko and Iroh make lives for themselves in the city as refugees. At some point, Zuko finds Aang's sky bison, Appa, who had been, due to some crazy adventures, got captured. And Iroh confronts Zuko when he finds the sky bison, saying, "It's time for you to look inward and ask yourself the big question. Who are you and what do you want?" That is a quote I started this presentation with. It is very relevant here because Zuko is now facing some inner turmoil of he still wants to capture the Avatar, but after all that he's experienced, his feelings have begun to waver. He even gets outright sick in the next episode, and which Iroh suspects is due to the inner turmoil that he's facing. So now we're beginning to see the build-up to a big fight. The ordeal. The ordeal is typically when the hero loses the fight and they have to find a new power to win against the big bad. However, the twist here that the writers do is that Zuko won. In this, Zuko's sister, Azula, managed to infiltrate the Earth Kingdom and essentially take it over without an outright invasion. Azula gives Zuko the chance to get his honor back, and thus Aang the Avatar is quote-unquote killed, though he does manage to survive, though Zuko and Azula don't know this. Uncle Iroh sacrifices himself, gets himself captured after, to allow Katara, along with Aang, to escape. Zuko makes the choice to help Azula in this fight, but yet we are shown that despite him being allowed to return to the Fire Nation, having his honor restored, he isn't happy. He has gotten everything he thought he wanted, but yet he isn't happy. And I feel like this is a very pivotal moment. The fact that Zuko would later make his choices after gaining everything he's wanted is very important. So I firmly believe that his choice to help Azula here makes his redemption arc so much more satisfying. So yeah, and then another example of just how unhappy he is in Season 3, Episode 5, The Beach. This goes more into his background, childhood, and also explores more of his sister's character. She's very important for the big final fight that I'll be mentioning later, but it showcases her. You can see how she became the person she is, even though she's still not very sympathetic. So yeah, we're going to be continuing on with number 9, which is seizing the sword. There are 2 moments that I can think of as seizing the sword for this show. One of them is a bit out of place, but I feel like it's relevant enough. The first one, though, going in order, is Season 3, Episode 6, Avatar and the Fire Lord. This is where Aang and Zuko go on parallel journeys and they discover their shared history. Aang's past life, the previous Avatar, was Avatar Roku, a firebender from the Fire Nation, who is revealed to be Zuko's great-grandfather from his mother's side. Zuko, after confronting Uncle Iroh, who is in prison about it, explains to Zuko that in order for Zuko to understand his own role in this conflict and his own family's role in this war, he needs to understand the conflict between his 2 great-grandfathers, Avatar Roku, who fought with Fire Lord Sozin, Zuko's great-grandfather from his father's side, to prevent the war. They fought, one to start the war, one to prevent it from happening. Avatar Roku's death is what allowed the war to begin. The second one is one that's a bit out of place, which I'll be going into more details in the next slide about, but Season 3, Episode 13, called The Firebending Masters. So, in between... And the next slide we'll be discussing how Zuko later joins Aang, but this takes place shortly after, where Zuko loses his ability to firebend because of his source of firebending was rage. He can't firebend anymore without his anger to fuel his bending. So Zuko and Aang go on this little journey, and they discover that firebending isn't just destruction, it is life, it is energy. And this gives them the new power and makes their firebending so much stronger. So this second one is a more literal interpretation of seizing the sword, while the first one is a more metaphorical. With the first one being that he's gained the knowledge of his great-grandfathers to better understand his own role. Now, number 10, the road back. This is where we'll be going into when Zuko decides to join Aang. In Season 3, Episodes 10 and 11, The Day of Black Sun, the Day of Black Sun is a solar eclipse where all firebenders are unable to firebend for the duration of the eclipse. There was originally a big planned invasion by the Aang group, but due to the fall of the Earth Kingdom, it was changed to be a much smaller one consisting of their friends and allies. Well, due to Azula's infiltration, the invasion went horribly wrong. And, well, yeah, many of their allies were captured, and that's pretty much what happened to Aang's group. They managed to escape. Zuko takes the opportunity to confront his father, Fire Lord Ozai. And I will quote this meme that I found, which is a quote from... It's a conversation between Zuko and Ozai. "You, my father, who will banish me just for talking out of turn. My father, who challenged me, a 13-year-old boy, to an Agni Kai. It was to teach you respect. It was cruel, and it was wrong. Then you've learned nothing. No, I have learned everything, and I've had to learn it on my own." Zuko, after confronting his father during the solar eclipse, follows Aang's group to the Western Air Temple, where he joins them after some shenanigans. Obviously, they didn't trust him at first because he had been hunting Aang for such a long time. But at this point, Zuko discovered that his role in this war is to teach Aang the final element, firebending, so Aang can bring peace to the world. He also goes on some various adventures with Aang's group, such as helping Sokka, Katara's brother, rescue some of their allies that got captured in the invasion. He helps Katara find her mother's killer. And then we have the aforementioned adventure with Aang. And there was also a really funny episode where they see a Fire Nation play on the Avatar gang's adventures, which ends up being really funny because they are seeing the conflict from the Fire Nation perspective. And it's also like a massive parody of the show. It's really funny. But yeah, so that's the road back, and now we are transitioning back into the ordinary world. Now we're at number 11, The Resurrection and the Final Agni Kai. Season 3, episodes 18 through 21, Sozin's Comet. This is the final culmination. The Fire Nation is beginning one final push. Is going to destroy the Earth Kingdom. Ozai declares himself the Phoenix King, which is a fancy term for King of the World, and makes Azula the new Fire Lord. This is where the group splits off. One group, which consists of Sokka and some others, to stop a airship invasion of the Earth Kingdom, which was meant to cause total destruction, basically burn it down. Aang goes off to confront the Phoenix King Ozai, and Zuko faces off against his sister Azula in an Agni Kai. This fight is the ultimate culmination of everything he's learned in this fight. And finally, we can see this video isn't about this, but there is a lot of topic. It can go into Azula's mental state and how Zuko and Azula foil each other in this fight, but we're not going into this video. We're not even going into that topic here. Either way, Zuko wins, and he takes the title of Fire Lord for himself. Finally, the final one, Return with the Elixir. Season 3, Episode 21, Sozin's Comet, Part 4, Avatar Aang. With Fire Lord Ozai defeated, Zuko is crowned the new Fire Lord. He vows to bring a new era of peace. But yet this is not where his adventures end. And there is a comic that takes place after the show ends, which deals with the topic of the colonies that are located in the Earth Kingdom, where Fire Nation citizens and Earth Kingdom people have been intermixing for generations, and now you have Fire Nation. Now you have Earthbenders who are Fire Nation citizens, and it becomes a big mess that Aang manages to solve with the territories in question breaking away from both kingdoms to become their own. This also helps set the stage for The Legend of Korra, which is a sequel series focusing on the next Avatar in the line after Aang. Other comics answer questions such as what happens to Zuko's mother, and also what happens to Azula and Ozai, who both survive, but one's in prison and the other one goes to an insane asylum. So, in conclusion, Zuko is a Zuko he might play an antagonistic role for much of the show, but I feel like he is an example of the hero's journey. You can see how he has followed most of the steps of the hero's journey, save for the one, but even then there was a literary explanation behind why number 3 was skipped. Even the writers managed to take the hero's journey and provide a twist on it by showcasing an antagonistic character following the journey. Even though he still follows it pretty much to the T, just in a very different way than you would expect. His character is one of redemption, of discovering of not letting other people decide your path for you. It is up to you to decide your own path in life. His story is one of redemption, and it is of no wonder why he is a well-beloved character in the Avatar: Last Airbender fan base. I would like to thank you all for watching. I would like to thank my professor who gave me the idea to make my project on this. I apologize for my stuttering that I have. I am not the best at video editing, and so otherwise I would have just recorded this in smaller tidbits. And I hope you all enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Zuko's great.